Shazi Visram is the founder of Happy Baby. It's a company that makes and distributes healthy food for infants and small children. Shazi launched Happy Baby on Mother's Day 2006 and sold it to Danone in June 2013. She's been featured by American Express for small business and lauded by Ernst & Young, Fast Company, and Inc. as a poster child for innovation and venture creation. We're here with her to talk about the big idea that led to Happy Baby and her approach to implementing it. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Good. So where did the idea for a Happy Baby come from?
Well, it happened almost 10 years ago, and it really was born of this need that I saw in the market that just hadn't been filled by the big players in the space. I was talking to a friend. She had twins. She was complaining to me that she didn't have anything really good to feed her children except for any time that she could make their food fresh, homemade. And she said her pediatrician had recommended that she make everything homemade. Her friends with nannies had a lot of help, making really, really great food for their babies. But she had a job and she had twins, and she found that she couldn't rely on anything they had at the store, and it was this ubiquitous glass jar of baby food. Whenever she would go to the shelf, that's what there was. And it took me a moment, and I stepped back and I thought, wow, I don't eat any processed foods. I personally think that the body has an incredible ability to heal itself if you let it. And I thought, and I'm so familiar with the health crisis that's facing America, and especially our children. And I started just putting the pieces together. Diabetes is terrible in the U.S. now. 1/3 of American babies born will get diabetes before the age of 12 if they eat the standard American diet. Almost 60% of our population is obese and overweight. Neurological disorders are epidemically on the rise. And there are a number of other issues that I felt were so closely related to nutrition. And it just dawned on me, why is it that we're feeding our children processed foods from the very, very beginning and expecting that they don't have a reliance on processed foods later? We have to give them something better now. And it just all started kind of falling together, falling into place, where I realized there's a mom who's this market who's literally crying for a better option. She's important in terms of the retailer where she shops, because the retailer really values this young mom and wants to do everything and anything to please her in terms of the lifetime value that she brings to the table. And yet the retailer didn't have anything innovative to offer her since the 1930s. And there's a mom wanting more, there's a retailer who would love a better option and the chance to make a better margin on the products because the jars are very low margin. And there's this overarching market that's evolving, saying that where the data is pointing to the health of our children being the number one priority for us. And I thought, what if we could put all of this together? And what if we could build a modern and warm brand that could really be the parent's mentor in a way as you go through this process of feeding? And what if we could provide that education and that information so parents could make better choices for their growing families? And it's a long-winded answer, but out of that, Happy Baby was born.
So that was one customer that you talked to.
Yeah.
Did you talk to any more?
Yeah. So
Tell us about that.
Well, once I had the idea from that conversation that day, I thought, well, let me see if other moms agree. And I ended up talking to over 100 moms and doing my own little research study. And what I found was 75% of them were unhappy with the jar of baby food. And of the 75%, 78% were aware that you could make your own homemade baby food. But of that 78%, maybe 30% had tried to do it, and then of that 30%, only 12% consistently did so. And so what I learned from those conversations is that, yes, there's absolutely a market for something better for the baby, and that people were willing to spend. That, they talked about their discretionary income, and you could see it. You could spend $100 on a pair of little booties for a baby that's going to grow out of them in 3 weeks, and you could spend, if you're in that market, $1,000 on a stroller. And it's a status symbol in a way, but it doesn't change the life or your baby's growing body. I guarantee you my son will never know if he was pushed around at that young age in a $50 umbrella stroller or a $1,000 bugaboo. He'll never know. And these moms realize that, and they're all thinking, what's important right now? And what can I give them right now that'll actually make a difference in their life? And, it's a result of talking those moms, that first 100, that made me realize there was so much in this business. Because not only was there a potential for a viable product that I could imagine being organic and full of nutrition that was focused on the nutritional needs of today's generation, but then retailers were going to be very accepting of it because they were excited to try something new. Moms were just through the roof excited about the possibility of being able to buy that convenience and the peace of mind at the same time. And then fourth, what I realized is this market was so phenomenal because you could build a brand without having to have millions of dollars for marketing. These were moms that, these millennial moms, these yoga moms, they talk to each other. And that's what they do. When they find something they like, they share it. So why don't we give them something they like? And that was kind of the genesis of the first business plan.
So is there anything about those, you were totally fired up. Was there anything about those early conversations that surprised you, that caused you to rethink or pivot or change, or was it all just validating?
Well, I think much of it was very validating, to be honest. And I'm one of those people who had a number of different ideas in the past, and I know the process of exploration, and it's almost like you get so excited about something that you need to talk to everybody so someone can prove you wrong before you take the big leap.
Right.
And in this case, with Happy, nothing ever gave me pause. I mean, there were a lot of naysayers, don't get me wrong, but in the initial days, it seemed like a no-brainer to everyone I spoke to. And the biggest challenge was, how do we deliver a product that can have that national impact? Because what I was going for was, I wanted a brand that could change the way children are fed in our country. And I wanted to be focused on organic nutrition and a modern, warm approach to parenting. And the question was, what was the product that was going to do that? And that's where, in the early stages, we had to pivot a lot. I would say, within a month of first launching our Happy Baby Frozen line, which was the first line that we launched on Mother's Day in 2006, within a month I realized there was no way that product line was going to bring us to where we are today. And we had to pivot just that quickly and say, you know what? We're not going to change the way children are fed in our country with a product that sells in the freezer, because we have to change parents' behavior dramatically. And while everyone seems so excited about the concept and the marketing and the design and the product, when the rubber hits the road, were the moms going to the freezer to buy something for their baby? Not really. Yeah. And the ones who were the ones who were buying it because they realized it was an alternative to the homemade process, which they were doing already. So they were buying it out of convenience from the homemade process. But what we were looking for was the alternative to that jar. And it's that jar of baby food that was really the source of so much dissatisfaction for moms. And what I realized is what we needed to do was identify the alternative to the jar.
Gotcha. I want to explore the suppliers and all that more, but before we do, one last question about the customers. If there's one question that you would tell a young entrepreneur they should be sure to ask when they're talking to those customers, what would it be?
Well, the one question I would definitely counsel any entrepreneur to ask would be to say, what are you currently lacking? Is there something that you're looking for from a vendor that you're currently not getting? And what is that? And is there a way you'd let me provide that to you? That was a conversation that I had at Whole Foods very, very early on. And I was in business school. I'd had this big dream, and the CEO of Whole Foods came to speak to the business school. And of course, he was finished with his talk, and I just jumped him. And I had the whole entrepreneurship department kind of behind me, and I had this prototype. And I said, I want to change the way children are fed in our country with this. And he said, okay, well, I'm opening a new store tomorrow at Columbus Circle. Why don't you come, and I'm going to be leading a team of people around, and you can meet some folks on my team, and you can talk about your idea. And it was that and it was, in a sense, just being myself, being the naive person that I was, to say something that, it seems so silly in retrospect, but I think that's the key in the beginning, is you just have to be honest with yourself and with the people around you and exhibit that sense of passion, because that's what gets you in the door. It's not having a perfect business plan, and it's not having every single detail worked out. It's not always being super polished. It's about knowing that you can do something better for this customer, and you can create a mutually beneficial result, which is a better business. And I think that was part of our early beginnings, because I'd have many conversations like that with many different customers, and it was always like, I have this big idea. I think that you have moms in your store that are dissatisfied. I think we can make them really, really happy. And I think we can make more money doing it, but I also think we can make the population healthier as a result. Are you in, or are you in? And I mean, everybody was in.
So was it harder to talk to, obviously having the CEO introduce you helps, but then you have to talk to the grizzled, hardcore buyers who look at their margins and they have a P&L and all that. Were those difficult conversations, and was it hard for those tough, grizzled types to take you seriously?
Yes and no. I think, I had a meeting with this guy at Whole Foods that was a very, very tough buyer. He was known for just tearing people up. And I remember I got this meeting as a result of that. And I'm sitting in his office lounge waiting, and there are vendors in there that had been selling to him in his region of Whole Foods for 9 years, some for 5 years. There was one guy that had been selling to him for 3 or 4 years and had never actually met him in person. And they were all very annoyed that I was actually even getting FaceTime with this guy. And I was so scared, because they were all talking about how tough he is. And, I went in and I told him about what I was doing. I said, I'm not 100% there yet. I need some help. And at the same token, I know this can be big. And let me show you my quick set of calculations. Tell me what you think. And his response was, yeah, you have a lot to work on. I see something here. I do know some people who can help you. And by the time I got home from that trip to Boston, there was an email from Seth Goldman, who's one of the founders of Honest Tea, in my inbox saying, Shazi, Tim Sperry from Whole Foods suggested we get together. I would love to give you any advice. And to this day, that guy has been so instrumental. He grew from being an advisor, an initial investor, to being on my board, and someone who was really functional in the past few months as we actually pivoted and took the business to a whole new level. And so, long story short is, yeah, they're scary meetings, but if you go in honestly and you show that you're serious and that you're also humble and you know that there are things that you haven't quite figured out yet, and you put them in a position to help you, a lot of times people will help you. And that guy spent 2 hours with me that day. And all those people were in the waiting room waiting. But he spent 2 hours. And so, you never know except for if you try. And in that case, I'm really glad that I took the initiative and went. I was scared, and I was nervous, and there were a lot of things that always made me feel insecure. And the question I would ask myself before walking into a big meeting or getting in my little Honda Accord that didn't have air conditioning to drive to Boston or whatever it is would be, if I don't do it, who will? And this is my dream. If I'm not going to make it happen, who's going to make it happen? And I think that's part of what you have to ask yourself a lot of times, just to keep you pumped up and to go and take a chance and try.
So how did you learn all the words and the vocabulary and the things the language that you had to use when you, I assume, knew nothing about the food business?
I knew nothing about the food business.
Right.
except for that I wanted to build a brand in the space, and I wanted it to be ridiculously successful. I think, again, it goes back to asking for help. So I had a professor whose guidance was, go to the trade organization that services that industry and learn from them. So I found the Organic Trade Association. I found this Northeast Center for Food Entrepreneurship. It was a small group dedicated to helping people like me figure out how to make things happen. And I started kind of going after advisors in the space that I'd heard of that had done something similar that I felt like I could really, really learn from. And I started doing a lot of networking. And what I found, especially in that industry, it's the natural foods industry. Everyone's cool, everybody is into organics. They're in it. It's a labor of love. They're not necessarily there simply because they're driven by the potential for financial success. That's not what you do while you're there. And so people are open, and I felt like, the more I'd ask for help, the more doors would be open to me. And yeah, I learned the lingo. I learned MCB, manufacturer chargeback, and OI, off invoice, and a number of those things. But they kind of came later and almost organically. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of putting one step in front of the other.
And did the relationships that you built and developed with suppliers ultimately play a role in your sale of the company?
I think so. I think with the sale of the company, the whole point is we as a business have accomplished so much on our own, and what I want truly is for Happy to leave a lasting legacy of health and wellness in this country. And I know to do that, I want to have a big brother, and I want to have the additional support and additional financial resources to go not just from here to here, which we've done, but from here to the stars. And Groupe Danone, who's our new partner, they've done that. In fact, they're almost 100 years old, but the mission for their business is to change the world through nutrition, especially with children. And they're socially responsible in everything they do. And then on top of that, they're very entrepreneurial. So the CEO of Groupe Danone is actually the grandson of the founder. And all of that together made them a really good fit. But what they were looking for in Happy was not, hey, here's a brand, let's go take it over in the United States. They were looking for strong leadership and something that worked, so they could come in and say, you guys keep doing what you're doing, and now count on us for all the additional support. And part of what was so meaningful is to have a relationship with someone like Target and a relationship with someone like Whole Foods to bring to the table and say, we've been working diligently with these guys to satisfy the needs of their guests. And we've done X, Y, Z with them. And there are a number of other buyers there that can identify what this bigger vision of a company could bring to Target, for instance. And now it's like we have access to so much additional growth because they're at the table. But I think they're at the table because we had access to Target. So that's building a brand. In a sense, the brand is the personality that our mark has, and not just on the package and the food, but it's also those relationships. And fostering those relationships from day one have been really, really important. And I still stay really involved. Anytime we have a meeting with any of our really important customers, I try to be there because I like to know what's going on. I like to hear what's not working, and I like to make sure that we're giving them everything that they want and need, because if they're not, then we need to try harder.
Well, thank you. Your insights are going to have an impact on students all over the world, and we really appreciate the time that you've given us.
But you're most welcome. It's humbling to be a part of it. Thank you for asking.